Today we're going to talk about the Sicilian Alapin Variation, which is a very simple and powerful system against the Sicilian defense. But before we start talking about the moves, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more. We all know that the Sicilian defense is probably one of the most theory-having openings in chess, and it always starts when you play e4 and your opponent replies by playing c5, which is the starting position of the Sicilian defense. But here, instead of playing like an open Sicilian or even a closed Sicilian, in this case we're going to play the move c3, preparing the advance on d4. That's the whole point of this move, to prepare the advancement on d4, so in case our opponent takes, we just take back with the c-pawn. And here I prepared the 5 most common replies from black, and we're going to study all these responses. So basically, whenever our opponent plays a move that is not actually attacking this pawn, we're going to advance d4. So if the opponent plays knight here to c6 or d6 or e6, we're going to advance to d4. This is our plan. But if they play a move like this one, attacking our pawn, or even the knight to f6 here, attacking our pawn, then we have to do something different. The most common move here is knight to c6, and against that, we're just going to push our pawn to d4. That's the whole point of this move c3, to push d4. And after the opponent takes, we take back, and we have this very powerful center on our board with 2 pawns, 2 central pawns. That's the whole point of this opening. And after the opponent plays d5, if the opponent goes for a different move here, let's say, for example, d6 or e6, we can simply go ahead and develop our pieces here. We develop our knights, we can develop the bishop here, castle. We have a very simple game. We can even think about pushing this pawn to kick the knight away. We have a very simple game. But if the opponent goes for d5, attacking our pawn, we trade. And after they take with the queen, they're actually attacking this pawn with 2 pieces. We have the queen and the knight attacking this pawn, so we have to defend it. So we develop the knight to f3. And after bishop to g4, trying to pin the knight and remove the defender, we just unpin the knight by playing bishop to e2. Keep that in mind, guys. Sometimes your opponent will think that they are going to win a pawn here by taking our knight, and when we recapture, they take the central pawn here. But that's not actually what's going to happen. If they go ahead and take this knight here and we recapture with the bishop, they cannot simply take this pawn here, because if they do so, they fall prey to this very interesting check here. We play bishop takes c6 with check, and they cannot take our queen here. They actually have to go back and defend, or take the bishop and lose the queen, and we win the queen in this very nice trap. Okay, so they cannot win the pawn in that position. So here, the best bet for them is to just play e6 and continue development. We're going to castle. After they play knight f6, we play knight c3, attacking the queen. They have to drop the queen back. And then we play bishop to e3, reinforcing our central pawn. After, let's say, bishop to e7, we play h3, attacking the bishop. And after they drop back, we have a great game here. We can play our rook to this open file. We can play queen here, attacking the pawn. We have so many moves that we can go for. This is a great game for white. So that's what we're gonna do in case our opponent plays knight here to c6. But the second most common move is actually this one, playing d6. In which case we're also going to keep with our plan, playing d4. After takes, we have a very strong center. Here, black is discouraged to play this move, because otherwise we just take this pawn, and after they recapture, we take the queen, and black will have to take with the king, losing castling rights. So they're probably not going to play this move. They're going to go for something else. In this case, knight to f6, attacking our pawn. We have to defend it, so we play knight to c3. It's one of the developing moves of this opening anyway, so we are going to play it no matter what. So now we can predict most of the moves from black here are going to be probably fianchettoing the bishop, castling, and developing this knight. So we can predict the next, let's say, 4 moves of black here, 3 or 4 moves. They're going to go for g6. We play knight f3, developing our pieces. Bishop to g7, we play bishop to d3, developing our pieces as well, castles. And after knight to c6, we play d5, attacking the knight. After they move it away, we drop our bishop back. We don't want to lose this bishop here, so we drop it back to e2. And after, let's say, bishop to g4, we can kick this bishop away. If they trade, we just take back with the bishop. After rook to c8, they're putting the rook to the open file. We can play bishop to g5. We have a great game here, and this is a slight advantage for white. We have +1 here, so this opening is actually giving us some advantage. We also have some ideas of bringing the rook to the open file. Queen here the same way. We can also bring this rook to the game very easily. So this is a good game for us. Okay, great. So this is what we do in case our opponent plays this move. But how about this move right here? How about opponent playing e6? Again, it's not stopping us to play d4. So if nothing is stopping us to play this move, we're going for this move. And after opponent takes, now they're going to strike with d5. We're just going to push. This is similar to like a French defense advanced variation structure, but we don't have the pawns here and here. So we have this open c file, but it's a very similar pawn structure. After the opponent goes for knight c6, we just defend our pawns with knight to f3. Bishop b4 check is a very common move here. We just block the check with the knight, and after knight g to e7, we play bishop to d3, setting up some traps here. So if the opponent is not aware and they castle, they're actually losing the game on the spot. If they go for castling here, which is a very common move, the second most common move, by the way, we can just play the Greek gift here. So we take the pawn with check, and after black takes, we check with the knight. Black's going to drop back, we play queen to h5, preparing checkmate here on h7. So the opponent has to make this move here to survive. If they go for something else, let's say the most common move here, believe it or not, guys, is taking the knight with check. We just capture it back. The threat is still here. So the only move to prevent checkmate is moving the rook to the side. But believe it or not, this is one of the most common moves in this position, knight to g6, which is not stopping checkmate here on h7. So always keep that in mind. This Greek gift can happen in many situations here. So that's not a good move for black. Instead of castling in this position, they should actually move the knight to f5. Okay, so this is the best move in this position, playing knight to f5. So in this case, when black goes for this move, knight to f5, we are going to castle. Very quietly here, we're going to castle and trick black into thinking that they're actually winning this pawn because they have two attackers and we have only this defender. But that's not true. That's not the case. Because when black goes for this capture and they take the knight, the pawn, we take back with the knight and they capture with their knight, we're going to have this very powerful move, queen to g4, attacking this pawn right here and attacking the knight at the same time. They cannot defend both. So they will probably drop the knight back to c6. And while doing so, they're actually losing this pawn here. And not only that, we're attacking the rook in the corner. They have to move the rook away. And after that, we just bring the bishop into the attack. Bishop to h6. We have a very strong attack here going on this side of the board. And meanwhile, we also have threats of moving this knight here. We have threats of bringing this rook to the game. It's just overwhelming attack. This pawn is doing a great job cramping black's position. This is just a great game for us. And according to the engine, we are plus 2.6 here in this position. Okay, so this is super winning for white. Going back to our original position here when we play c3, the most challenging positions here and moves for black are actually playing this move here and or maybe playing this move. So let's take a look at them. If black goes for this move, if they play d5, we're going to take the pawn. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take this pawn, and after queen takes, we play d4. Our opponent can go for two different plans here, taking the pawn or developing the knight, and in each case, we're just going to keep with our plan, developing our pieces. So if they take the pawn, we just take back. We're gonna have this isolated pawn, but it's not a big deal. They develop knight to c6, attacking our pawn. We have to defend it. Knight to f6, knight to f3 will defend the pawn. After bishop to g4, attacking our knight, pinning the knight. They think they are removing the defender. We just block bishop to e2, and here we have a very similar situation that we have seen in the other trap that we seen. Maybe they will try to take this knight, and they're thinking that when we take here, they can actually win this pawn, but that's not true. We have that same trap after takes, and queen takes. We can go ahead and take this knight here with check, winning the queen. It's the same trap that we have seen in some lines ago. So keep that in mind because this trap can happen in more situations. So here, the best move is actually e6. We have seen this before. And here we're going to follow the same plan. We castle, we develop our pieces, attacking the queen, they drop the queen back, bishop to e3, defending our central pawn. And from here on, we have a great game. We can centralize, we can bring the rook to the open file, we can bring the queen to the game. We have all these options at our disposal. Okay, so the other plan that our opponent can go for here, instead of playing takes, they can actually play knight to f6, developing the pieces. We're going to follow our plan the same way. We're going to develop the pieces, knight out, we're going to break the pin, we're going to castle here, same thing. And when they decide to take our pawn, then we're going to recapture. So we kick the bishop away, defend our central pawn. When they capture, we can capture here with either piece is actually good, but taking with the knight is a little bit better. After we take with the knight, they trade bishops here. We just take back, knight takes. In the center of the board, knight takes d4. We just take back with the bishop. We have a great game of chess here, guys, in case opponents keeps developing bishop to e7, for example. We just develop the knight, and after castles, we have a great game. We can centralize our rooks here, put the rooks at the center of the board. It's always a great option in this case, okay? So this is what we do in that case. Now going back to the starting position of the Alapin c3, the most challenging position here, the most challenging move is actually playing knight to f6. This is the most challenging line, and we're going to learn what to do against this one. So here, instead of pushing d4, we're going to actually push e5, attacking this knight and forcing the knight to move again. If they are not aware, if black is not aware and they play, for example, knight to e4, they immediately lose the piece to the move d3, trapping the knight. The knight has no squares to go to. This square is taken, this square is taken, this square is taken by the bishop, this square is also taken by the pawn. This square is taken by their own pawn. The best bet for them is to just sacrifice the knight for this pawn or this pawn. Okay, so they have no squares to go. It's just losing the game here. So the best option for them is to actually play knight to d5 instead of knight to e4. So when they do that, we play d4, pushing now our pawn to the center of the board, and after takes, instead of taking back, the main line here is actually to take back, but I learned a very interesting move here that is more strong, and usually black is not prepared against that. Instead of playing knight here or taking, we're going to actually take with the queen. Queen takes d4. This is a move that your opponent might not be expecting, so you're going to get your opponent unprepared. We're attacking the knight, so they're going to play e6 to protect the knight here. And after knight to f6, knight to f3, sorry, developing our pieces, and knight to c6, we play this move, queen e4, to protect our queen that is under attack. And here it's very difficult for black to attack our queen, actually. They can go for two moves, which are d6 and f5. d6 being the most common one, and f5 being the most challenging, the strongest of the choices. So if the opponent goes for d6, we're going to play g3. We're going to have similar plans in both cases here. We're going to put this bishop over here, castle, and then we can attack by playing this move and bringing the rook to the open file. That's probably what we're going to do in all cases. So we're going to wait for our opponent to take. When they take, we're just going to recapture with the knight. After they capture, we capture. And they play queen to d6, offering a queen trade here. We're not going to do that. We're going to drop our queen back to e2. Safe position here. After, let's say, bishop to e7, we fianchetto the bishop like our plan was in the first place. Castles, castles. And bishop to d7, for example, we have some really great attacks here. Pushing this pawn, attacking the knight, bringing the rook to attack the queen here on the open file. Developing the knight here is also a great idea after we push the pawn. And we have a great game of chess to play. If the opponent instead goes for the move f5 in the previous position, if they decide to go for this move here, instead of playing d6, they go for f5, which is the most challenging one. We're just going to drop the queen back and we have a similar plan. We're dropping the queen back. After bishop to e7, let's say, we play g3. We're going to fianchetto the bishop. That's our plan. So black's going to castle. We're going to fianchetto the bishop, bishop to g2. And after, let's say, b6 here, trying to fianchetto their bishop, we castle. And they play bishop to b7, for example, fianchetto their bishop. And here we have the same game plan. We can push here, attacking this knight. And once this knight moves away, we can just play our knight here and bring the rook to the open file here. We have a great game to play as white. And we have an advantage here that the engine gives, plus 1.3 for white. So that's the Alapin. That's the Sicilian Alapin, a very simple and strong system, an anti-Sicilian that you can play against your opponents and will get you some wins. If you like this video, please comment down below, like and share with your friends. Consider subscribing to the channel for more, and as always, I see you guys in the next one.